Let's talk about something that's suddenly everywhere. In the lecture hall, in the library, in your dorm room. It's AI, and it is completely changing the game for students and instructors. Okay, let's dive into this.
Right out of the box, these large language models, or LLMs, are like having a superpowered assistant on call 24/7. They can take a super dense article and just give you the highlights, help you finally start that tricky email, or even act as a sounding board for a brand new project. The power is immediate, and you can see why everyone's talking about it.
And that right there is the million-dollar question, isn't it? With all this new power, we have a whole new set of questions. What's okay to do and what's not? And even beyond the rules, how do you actually use this thing to help you learn instead of, just doing the work for you? That's what we're going to break down.
Okay, first things first, let's get practical. What can this new AI assistant actually do for you day to day? We're going to look at how it can make life easier for pretty much everyone, from first-year students to seasoned professors.
What's really wild is just how many different things it can do. We're talking about condensing your messy lecture notes into clean summaries, or asking for a simple explanation of a really complex theory. It can be your personal tutor, your brainstorming partner, and your editor, all rolled into one.
And you can see how this plays out on both sides of the classroom. A student might use it to understand a confusing question on a problem set. At the same time, an instructor could use it to come up with new ideas for that very same assignment. It really is a tool for everyone.
Which of course brings us to the elephant in the room. The moment you start talking about AI doing academic work, that word comes up: cheating. It is probably the single biggest concern in education right now.
So, to figure this out, we need some clear rules of the road. This next part is all about the foundation for using AI responsibly, academic integrity, and being transparent about how you're using it.
So where do you find these rules? The first place to look is the syllabus. Seriously, think of it as the AI user agreement for each class. If you're a student, your job is to read it carefully. If it's vague, ask. And for instructors, the goal is to be super clear about what's allowed and what's not. Communication is everything here.
But this brings up a tricky question. When do you actually have to cite the AI? A really great way to think about this is tool versus agent. If you're using it like a thesaurus to find a better word, well, that's just a tool. But if you're asking it to write a whole paragraph or summarize an article, it's acting more like an agent or a collaborator. And you'd always give credit to a collaborator, right?
And look, giving credit doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing. It can be as simple as a little footnote or a quick sentence at the end of your work. The goal is just transparency. Let people know how you used it, and you're building trust and keeping things honest.
Okay, so we've got the rules down. Now for the fun part. How do we actually get good at using this stuff? The secret isn't about asking one perfect question. It's about learning how to have a conversation.
The best way to do it is to be conversational. Just start with a simple prompt, then refine it. Ask for a summary, then ask it to make the summary longer, then ask it to rephrase it for a totally different audience, or to give you a real-world example. This back and forth doesn't just get you a better answer, it keeps your brain switched on and part of the process.
And here's a pro tip for you. Ask the AI to explain how it got its answer. It's called a chain of thought prompt. Instead of just asking for the answer, you ask it to show its work, to cite sources, or list the pros and cons. You will get a much smarter, more reliable response.
And this is so important. You have to remember that the LLM knows absolutely nothing about you. The more context you give it, what course you're in, what your major is, if you're a total beginner, the better and more personalized the response will be. Generic questions get generic answers.
So, to really master these tools, it helps to peek under the hood a little bit. These things aren't magic. They're incredibly complex systems, and they have some pretty specific strengths and weaknesses.
At its core, an LLM is basically just a super fancy next word predictor. But it's a huge leap from the predictive text on your phone. See, your phone is only looking at the last couple of words. An LLM uses something called an attention mechanism to look at the entire conversation, which lets it create stuff that actually makes sense.
And getting that attention mechanism to work, it takes a staggering amount of power. Training a big new model can use anywhere from 5 to 60 gigawatt hours of electricity. To put that in perspective, that's enough to power a small town for an entire year. So yeah, these are massive, massive systems.
But all that power brings a really interesting new risk, especially for students. You could call it vibe learning. It's that temptation to just focus on the final goal and let the AI handle all the messy details in the middle. The problem is, for someone who's new to a subject, the learning happens in those messy details.
And that really brings us to this quote, which just nails the problem here.
Using an LLM like a black box can make you feel like you know something. But if you're not actually engaging, it's just an illusion of knowledge. And that can be way worse than just admitting you don't know. And that really opens up the door to the biggest questions of all, the ones that go way beyond a single assignment and get to the very heart of what education is going to look like from now on.
I mean, we really have to wrestle with these fundamental ideas now. How much should we trust these things? How do we teach critical thinking when answers are instant? As AI starts to do more, our role shifts to being more of a manager, and it all boils down to these two huge concepts: accountability and attribution. So let's just lay down a simple, powerful rule of thumb here. The human is always accountable. Full stop. The student is responsible for the assignment they turn in. The instructor is responsible for the materials they create. The AI is an amazing tool, but the person using it holds the final accountability.
So I want to leave you with this question. As this technology gets more and more woven into our work, as it becomes our partner, our collaborator, and our tool, how do we make sure that we, the humans, are the ones who are ultimately in charge and accountable for what we create? The answer to that is going to define the future of learning itself.